stay there. Running out of space for books. This is becoming a problem. Some of them are just too tall to stack in front of my screen. Damn. Actually, Bergson over here, and I can just not see my menu bar. Beautiful. How are we all? Hello, Curses. The pre-stream video looks weird. Yeah, I desaturated it a little bit to see if that would look better. I'm not sure if I like it. I'm probably going to switch it out soon. I made that for the Haas debate originally as a joke, and it just kind of stuck. Besides, we're going into winter, and it doesn't match like some of the music I play. Like the Red Alert stuff, sure, but the as soon as you get into like, you know, more whimsical territory, it just doesn't do it. Works with the Monkey song though. I am quite well, thank you, Lisa. What you're reading? I am reading too much. At the moment, I'm going through. All right, here's everything that I'm going through actively as we speak. Okay. This is everything I'm reading at the same time, which is dumb, by the way. It's better to focus on one thing and finish it. But I am making progress. So, first up, I'm whittling away at Time and Free Will, which is gorgeous. This is one of the most fascinating books I've ever read. I will have a lot to say about this one in the near future. I've already had stuff to say about it. I am also slowly doing the full run of Capital, finally. I'm hoping to be finished Volume 1. I've read a lot of Marx. I haven't read, like, through one of these monsters yet. So, I'm hoping to have this one complete in a couple months. I'm coming back to it after having gotten more into Spinoza, and a little bit into Bergson as well, and a little bit into Bataille has made my reading of this just so much more interesting and rich. I'm going to have a lot to say about this at some point. I haven't picked it up in a few days, but I'm also going through, I'm rereading John Searle's The Rediscovery of Mind. I'm rediscovering The Rediscovery of Mind. Also, highly recommend. This is one of those ones as well that coming back to it after 5 years, I'm getting a lot more out of it than I did the first time. Additionally, I am reading, of course I've talked about this, Arturo Pérez Reverte's The Club Dumas. This is the novel that The Ninth Gate is based off of. It's better than the movie in my opinion, but it's still really good. I'm almost done Dune Messiah. And I think, for the time being, that's it. I will be starting The Mote in God's Eye very soon. So, I've got a lot on the go. A lot. And that's not even talking about the stuff I'm doing specifically for stream. That's just stuff I'm reading for itself. So, it's a lot. Thank you, Rixar, for the $2. Appreciate it. You're exhausted today? Why? Hope you're doing alright. Bergson and Bataille have stunning prose. They really do. I'm undecided which one's better, but Bergson has the no. Actually, they're both. What the hell am I talking about? They're both in translation. Yeah, no, they're gorgeously written books. Am I a bit quiet? It looks like I'm peaking on my end. I think the I need to turn the music down. That's why. Let me pull this in a bit closer. How's the audio now? Are we better? Your intermission screen always looks like the planet is burning. Have you been to Western Canada? The planet is burning. What's your opinion on anti-natalists? I think they are silly. They're just silly. I have almost no truck with anti-natalists. It's a completely absurd philosophical position. It's absurd. There's no way to justify it. And it seems to always, almost without fail, rest on some unjustified, extraordinary pessimism about the worth of human existence, and it's self-defeating because the worth of human existence is judged by reference to humanity. Alright, we got a couple things to go over today, and we will be continuing. We're not going to do a theory meter today, because that's not how I roll. When you pay for theory, when that theory meter goes up, and for people who are perplexed as to what I'm talking about, this is my ingenious idea, my brilliant idea, to make theory streams commercially viable. I have a meter here. On a normal stream, I will cover any number of topics. It might be, oh, did I? Oh, that is the main one. Okay, good. It might be something quote unquote drama related. It might be news related. I might be like going over some disagreement or whatever. The normal stream stuff. That's the stuff that brings people in. Talking about Vosh says something stupid like we need to deport all turnips. If that's a racial slur, I mean literally turnips, like the root vegetable. Covering that brings in attention. However, if you want me to get to the stuff that I'm actually known for, besides the video essays, and not known for amongst a certain crowd, but if you want me to like cover the stuff of peculiar interest to this channel, you can super chat me. And when I reach $100 in super chats, it doesn't matter where we're at in the drama. If this meter's up here and we reach $100, we skip immediately to the theory. And I do you one better. If we don't finish the theory, if it takes, say, an hour and a half to get through half of a document, we continue it for free, and no theory meter goes up until it's done. Because that's how I roll. So, today, we're going through something painful, but it won't be for super long, and then we are finishing Bataille. And then I think afterwards we are going to talk about Starfield. Because it looks awful to me. It looks completely awful. And Brooks agrees, and he's going to be joining us for Bataille, so there. Sirius says, you could say that the drama is what people turn up for. I hate you so fucking much. Oh. Thank you, Manic Jackson, for the 5 gifted memberships. I really appreciate that. Something we'll be going over when I get back. We're actually going to make our first incursion onto Rumble. I said I was going to do that a few months ago. We actually have occasion to do so now. This is once again in the interest of having a more intellectual engagement with those parts of the right wing that are capable of having that kind of engagement. So we're going to start trying to push back in front of their audiences in an intelligent way. We're not doing the Destiny thing. We're going to attempt to actually reason some people out of some positions. Positions peculiar to my area of expertise. So, Big Papa Fascist, Andrew from the Crucible, has apparently gone over he has done an extensive ongoing takedown of friend of the channel, Not So Erudite. And he's covered my stuff as well. So, one way to make inroads, I think, is to cover that, and to give my responses to that as well. And I think we'll actually have some things to push back against Andrew on. He was also oddly... Maybe this is just an enemy of my enemy type situation. But we have severe disagreements. Obviously he's called Big Papa Fascist. I have been extraordinarily ungenerous, justifiably, in my opinion still, to both him and his wife and associates. He seemed to be pretty fair, from what I've seen. So we're going to attempt that in kind, and we're going to make that our first incursion. So that's in the near future. Critical support for Big Papa Fascist? Not in the strictest sense. Okay. Let's put a big asterisk next to that. Big asterisk. But we'll give it a fair shake. Lonerbox went through the Jubilee vid today, did he? What was his take on it? You never said completely awful? I think it looks completely awful, but that's just me. Okay, so what we're actually here for. Right, here we go. I have a new Reactivid playlist. We got some funny stuff tomorrow to go over, guys. Tomorrow's going to be fun. Tonight is probably going to be hell, but c'est la vie. Okay. I am probably going to get demonetized for this. Guys, if you want to help support the channel, I am almost certain Jubilee is one of those channels that, cuts off everyone's monetization for covering it. So super chat me if you want me to be able to do this and not be homeless. I can understand if some of you would like me to be homeless while I'm doing this, but we don't like you. Okay, so goodness, I'm tiny. What the hell happened here? Let's make it a little bit. By the way, this background is from the best Lovecraftian game on Steam next to Amnesia, and that is called... Oh, you can't even see it anymore. It's called Darkness Within in Pursuit of Louth Nolder, which I highly recommend. Maybe I'll play it on stream sometime. It's my game. It's entirely my vibe. Okay. This is... Oh, dear God. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. And you know what? I was actually inspired. Big Papa Fascist has a good setup. And it's this one. He just centers everything. So I think I might actually do this, and we'll see how we like it. Let me know if you like this, or if you prefer me up at the top. I don't know why it seems egotistical to put myself down here. But you know what? Screw it. If I'm egotistical enough to have a cheap webcam and think that people want to pay me money to listen to me talk about YouTube videos, which, dear God, is insane, I can go in the center of the screen. So this is Black Conservatives versus White Liberals, middle ground on Jubilee. What immediately stands out to me here, there's a frustrating... I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but there's been a frustrating tendency of some liberal media figures to try to adopt the title of being the left-wing representative in certain public-facing media things. I remember in the Destiny and Zizek talk, he was introduced as a leftist and made no clarification. This is somebody who's been quote-unquote purging leftoids from his community for quite some time now, and saying he can't engage with the left positively as a separate entity because of toxic capacities within the left, which he justifies by means of peddling in right-wing conspiracy theories, which is fantastic. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. The $2. So we're going to see how this goes. Jubilee is a dumpster fire. Their entire shtick is to put people into an awkward, dark room and just have them argue with each other. There is absolutely no control in terms of making sure that there is any representative of a... How do we put this? That there is apt representation, for example, for multiple views in something contentious and serious, whether or not, for instance, conspiracy theories have some kind of expert presence or some kind of somebody with the appropriate knowledge base to push back against them, so on and so forth. It's just a dumpster fire. It's a spectacle and nothing more, and it's probably damaging insofar as the only thing you get from it is a caricature of actual communication. I like this setup. I like this centered setup, especially, ooh, I love this background too with this. This is good. I kind of like this. Let's see, what was the chat's reception to that? Corner is better, put Sunday in the corner. Do we like the corner better? Corner is better for gaming, but I'm not gaming right now. And I feel like when it's up in the top, when I'm not gaming, like this screen seems kind of empty, you know? Yeah, okay. So anywho, this is Jubilee, Black Conservatives versus White Liberals. And there's a still in here that's just beautiful. So there's one good thing that came of this.
We want you to help us decide what the next 112 episodes will be. Join our Middle Ground Patreon community and make Middle Ground with us.
I was chosen to read the following prompt. White Americans have way more advantages than Black Americans.
I think I'm a rarity here.
It would seem so.
Look how awkward this is. What is? Why are they starting from like the back like that? What are these? These look so uncomfortable. These stools. Why are they just in a void?
Way more advantages than Black Americans.
Okay, so this is what they're discussing. White Americans have way more advantages than Black Americans.
I think I'm a rarity here.
It would seem so.
Do white Americans
Ugh, I'm feeling a lot better about myself right now. Destiny's got the same lower half that I do at the moment. He's lacking the upper half to balance it.
have more advantages because they're white, or do just white Americans have advantages because of historic factors? I think that people want to argue at the end of the day over whether it's because you're white or not. I think that the answer is because you're white in the past, and that's how it kind of carries over to today. You know, even in times of the United States history where Black people tried to build wealth, you know, with the Tulsa riots and everything, yes, where that this wealth has been destroyed. And something that's upsetting to me is when conservatives talk about how we can't blame the past for what's happening in the present. That is true to some extent, but then the next breath they'll talk about how important it is to have dual-parent households, how important it is to have a strong family.
Thank you, Win, for the 10 gifted memberships. I really appreciate that. He says it's upsetting to him, but he gets on Lex Friedman, and the only thing he wants to talk about is whether or not he wants to argue about how it's cool for him to use the N-word. I don't particularly care one way or the other on that debate, but it's like you don't take this seriously when you're reflexively. He wasn't removed from Twitch for this, but this is the reason why people thought he was for a little while, and this is the reason why I think, if memory serves, this is why Vosh's former partner was mobilizing people to get him banned from Twitch. When he was talking about the Kenosha riots, his response to that was, if there's any more like if there are more like burning buildings, burning cars, whatever, then rednecks. I'm okay with rednecks mowing these people down. Something disturbingly in the ballpark of that. I don't think you're upset by any of this, Stephen. I don't think you give a shit. I think what we're witnessing here is, ironically enough, the one thing that the anti-SJWs were right on the money about, and that's that there is a concentration of quote-unquote male feminist types who are there for ulterior reasons, and once the social and economic advantage of occupying that space went away, once the political winds changed, they all showed their true colors, and they switched back to doing what the other guys were doing. We saw this with Anna Kasparian. We saw this with Chud Logic. He used to have entire streams talking about fucking Mark Fisher. Expletive Mark Fisher. He was not involved with Mark Fisher in that way, to his great discredit. And of course, Destiny. So, like, it's gross. It's really gross. And we're in a situation right now where the left representation in the media was once not co-opted by money per se. Positions were taken by people with money. But now the positions themselves are being turned towards an anti-leftist agenda by money. It's very disturbing. You've got kind of a weird, creepy coalescence of wealthy post-leftists basically trying to bury the rest of you under the ground. It's disturbing.
To have responsibility passed on from parent to child, and we've seen in the past that because of racial issues, that process has been severely disrupted.
The funny thing is that agreeing with all these things is when I did my research when I was younger, which arrived me to my standpoint of being a conservative, because I believed it was racist, Democrat, liberal ideologies and policies dating all the way back to the 1800s, all the way up to the 1960s, and then the purported big switch. But I think it was more so when Democrats decided to be a bit more cloak and dagger about their true opinions of black people and be more secretive and more, we want to help you by doing these things and seeing them as inferior.
Doing what things?
Affirmative action, welfare, all sorts of things that eventually ruin our culture and place us where we are now.
So
but I want to get back to the history of it, because we're talking about...
Well, I just want to make sure we're clear. Giving them money hurt them, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, giving them, because if your father's out of the home, that's...
Who the hell is Alec? This guy makes me look charismatic.
when we give you the money. If you're living in this
so,
housing,
so then give them
if
the
you're
money
living
while
in
the
this
dad's
housing
in,
rent-free,
well, then
that's
give
how
them
you
the
get
money
more of
while
the
the
money.
dad's in the
If
home.
if you're working
So
this
give
amount of
them the-
hours and getting less than this amount of
You're
dollars,
throwing-
you're getting money
you're
from the
throwing
government.
the
Yes,
baby-
it is
you're
incentivizing.
throwing the baby out with the
it is-
bathwater.
I don't even know what that means in this scenario because
Thank you, Win. Happy Labor Day to you too. Thank you, Manic Jackson. Appreciate it.
yes.
You're
okay, you
throwing
want to talk about throwing babies
Okay,
out with
let
the
me break this
bathwater?
down for
Margaret
you.
Sanger wanted to exterminate the black race because she thought they were weeds. So yeah, we can literally talk about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's what
Okay.
Margaret Sanger, that's what Democrat policies wanted to do to my people. So that's
Let's-
why I feel so strongly about it, because it is these policies that date back centuries that were built off of the death and poverty of my people.
Let's take a breath.
Mom, can we get Vosh? No, we have Vosh at home.
So,
I'm breathing.
okay.
So a lot of babies aren't, but I
Alright.
am,
Okay.
sadly.
I don't know what that means. When I say throw the baby out with the bathwater, you want to completely get rid of welfare, okay? Or at least I don't want to put that on you, you haven't said that, but the conservative apparatus does, clearly. So giving money to a group of people does not hurt them.
I mean,
It
sure, if
can't.
you're talking about a lottery,
It
you just, hey,
literally
take
can't.
money. But
Yes.
there are strings
Take money.
You know the guy is a Republican because he's already mad and they've just started? Who are we talking about, Chandler?
attached to that money.
Take all the
there
money.
are strings attached
Give
to
them
that
millions. Make them all millionaires. I don't care. Giving money to black people does not hurt them.
I disagree with Chandler, but he's not being unreasonable here. Alec interrupting in this way, just frantically, is kind of embarrassing.
And
That has
thinking
not
that.
happened, though. That has not happened.
What do you mean?
That has not happened. It hasn't been a
You're saying
reparations. It hasn't been this
so
or that.
what
it has
you're
been
saying,
a welfare program,
welfare
Great
was
Societies
designed.
Act, that
Welfare
was
was-
built off of the idea of, hey, we get these families split up, we get these
So
people
then let
living
them
here.
keep the family together and keep all the money.
I mean,
There you go.
I guess
Boom,
so,
done.
but I guarantee you,
I guess
there's
so.
no way that
Why
would
would you
happen.
not advocate for that?
So, in your, I guess, research of like history of this country and everything, do you find like the Reconstruction era and like the failures of like what it wanted to be and then what it ended up being, and then which led into had downstream effects to enter into the Jim Crow era, and you have policies like redlining that influence how schools are funded. The downstream effects of slavery, do you think put black people as generally in a worse off position than white Americans?
I think generation by generation, the effects of slavery have been diluted.
My understanding about Sanger, and it's not deep, but my understanding about Sanger is that she was involved with eugenicists. I'm unclear. I think who was it who made that claim about Sanger? It's been a little while. Was it Carson? Oh yeah, it was Carson, I think. Oh, he's dead, isn't he? Damn, weird. Died of COVID, of all things, if memory serves. No, wait, hang on. Who died? One of them died. It wasn't Ben Carson. It was fuck. No, Ben Carson retired. Who was it who died? No, he was close to death. That's what it was. Okay, I see. Sorry, my history's not good here. So, he was desperately ill from COVID, but is now out of the woods. Okay, Ben Carson's alive. Apparently. Wait. Apparently a lot of people thought he died a year ago. Was there a hoax or something? Herman Cain! That's who I'm thinking of. Thank you. Herman Cain. Got it. What do you mean, one of them? I mean Republicans.
But generation by generation, the effects of racism, welfare-based policies, and things of that nature became even more great. So in the 1880s or so, when we had our first black members of Congress, which were indeed Republicans, I think that was
Sanger
a
was
great
the
start
Planned
for things.
Parenthood
But
thing.
obviously, we had terrible things that happened, like the Tulsa massacre.
She was involved with eugenics and the Klan after initial abortion advocacy, was she? Anyways.
Among black people being chased out of their homes by the KKK.
Sure.
So I think Herman Cain died of COVID. And then Ben Carson was deadly ill with COVID. Okay.
All funded by the Democrat Party, all supported by the Democrat
Okay,
Party.
well, I need to stop you there. Can you attribute not to the party but to the ideology? Because I think when you think regardless of whatever the party switch was, traditionally conservative values did not like. That's more aligned with more racist policies
It's
in this
very
country.
difficult
Like
to
very
compare 2020's conservatism to 1880s conservatism.
What was that sound? What was that sound supposed to be? Oh no, we're sending in the B team.
So personally, I feel like there's really only one thing that white people have a true advantage over black people with, and it's that white people are less likely to be forced into a box. It happens with black people onto other black people, but it especially happens with white liberals onto black conservatives, where we are told that we are supposed to think a certain way, be a certain way, and if we're not, then we're called all these names like etc. And the worst of all is bootlicker, because I hate when a white liberal tells me as a black man that I'm a bootlicker, because then I ask, whose boot am I licking? Because you're telling me as a white person that me as a black person that I'm licking your boot because I don't think in this box that you want me to frame my mentality in. That to me is real racism, and that's what we need to stop allowing to happen to us, because black people are so quick now to not branch out and to have new ways of thinking or to go into careers like agriculture and these other career paths that
I don't know, dude. Like, the Democrats may have been pro-segregation in the past, but the Republicans have been pro-segregation in the last 20 years. So, not ubiquitously, not across the board, but there were actual examples of segregationists running for office. Brianna Wu worked for one. That's how she got her start in politics.
black people don't typically get into. It's not because of racism stopping them from getting in there. It's because we're told for so long that you have to follow this path and you have to think a certain way.
I think America is a great place for a black person. I think I'm an American. Anything that's available to you is available to me and mine.
I've
Thank you for that.
personally never
This is a travel brochure?
experienced white people having way more privileges than me. Like, I'm sure you could find certain institutions where black people are treated differently, but in general, I don't think that I've missed out on anything because of being black. And if anything, it's given me more of a voice because people will want to hear what I say now because I'm black. So if anything, I have more of a platform now just on the basis of being a black conservative and saying what's not popular than I would if I was just a white person who was also conservative.
I agree with the Supreme Court's decision to end affirmative action.
I think I'm not going to start. Someone else can start.
So is the idea that they're occupying space relative to their position, or what are they doing?
Sorry. I think affirmative action has served its purpose. I think that it was necessary for a particular time. And I think that every black person knows how to get into college. You can pull out the names, the Oprah, President Obama. You can pull out the head of Time Warner was black man, the Forbes was black man. We know what to do now. We don't need affirmative action anymore. And to me, affirmative action is offensive sometimes, especially nowadays, because
I have more of a platform, bro. Yeah. It's like as a black conservative, I am prized as a token knockdown argument against the notion that Republicans are racist. It's fantastic.
I have 6 children and 2
Thomas
boys, 4
Sowell's
girls.
whole career.
And all of them went to Harvard and Columbia and this one and that one. And it breaks my heart to think that they accomplished that goal of getting into these institutions just because of the color of their skin.
I can definitely say that it creates a lot of tension when you have affirmative action. I remember my first week at the University of Illinois, I was sitting with some classmates and a white student turned to me and jokingly like, "Hey Xavier, did you just attach a smiley face when you applied for this college?" And I started asking what he meant, and he said to me that he was like, "You're black, I'm assuming you had decent grades. You could have just attached a smiley face and you would have gotten into the university." So I was livid by that, and I went off, I started naming all of my accomplishments, and I felt so confident only for...
Hang on, let me hear the story one more time.
First week at the University of Illinois, I was sitting with some classmates and a white student turned to me and jokingly like, "Hey Xavier, did you just attach a smiley face when you applied for this college?" And I started asking what he meant, and he said to me that he was like, "You're black, I'm assuming you had decent grades. You could have just attached a smiley face and you would have gotten into the university." So I was livid by that, and I went off, I started naming all of my accomplishments.
So a guy in school, not even, not a person with any authority, just a person in your class. Why are you telling us this? What does this establish? Were they on the applications board? Like,
accomplishments, and I felt so confident only for about an hour, because then an hour later I started saying to myself, like, wow, like, did I actually earn my way in here? I started to have this insecurity, and I started wondering to myself, did I earn this position myself, or did my ancestors' suffering earn this for me?
wow, that random person in your classroom really got under your skin, huh?
And two, I've seen it in the sense of like affirmative action taking away from other people who are minorities. Like I had a friend who was Asian.
It is not the case that if you are a black person, you can just put a smiley face on your application and get into university. That's not how that works. I'm sorry. That's why he can't refer, for instance, to like an applications advisor saying, "Don't worry about your grades. Don't worry. We've got affirmative action. You're a shoo-in. It's okay." It's some guy. There's some guy in his classroom who said this.
And then he in high school, and he really wanted to go to MIT. That was his dream school. He interned there. He was super like prepared to go there, and he didn't get in. And you can only assume that it was because of affirmative action, because they have such a large Asian population that they want to admit other people.
What? Why would you assume so? That doesn't make any sense.
He interned there. He was super like prepared to go there, and he didn't get in. And you can only assume that it was because of affirmative action, because they have such a large Asian population that.
Why would you only assume that? There are so many other possibilities. Maybe it's not because of affirmative action. Maybe he actually wasn't competitive. Maybe other people interned. Maybe other people had higher grades. Like, why on earth would you assume that he didn't get in because they had reached their Asian quota?
They want to admit other people.
Yeah, I was going to actually argue that it's more racist nowadays because it excludes so many Asian Americans from getting into universities who do deserve a spot, and they can't get in because of affirmative action, which, again, like you were saying, was necessary at the time.
Yeah.
But now it's like anybody, if you have the skills to do it and you're in America, you can get in.
No, Flying Witch. He was giving that anecdote to explain the effect of affirmative action. But that has no bearing on the issue unless he's trying to suggest that this student's opinion reflected the actual institutional situation, which it doesn't.
I don't think affirmative action is the worst thing, considering all the different types or aspects of a background you might take into account when somebody's getting into college, whether they were in certain clubs, Boy Scouts, what type of classes they took. That might not be available to everybody. I don't think that factoring in the affirmative action is necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like because of everything you guys have said, the optics behind it are so horrible today that even if it is slightly beneficial in the long run for certain people, I think we can probably refocus most of that into figuring out like the class that people come from, the neighborhoods, the backgrounds or whatever, without it having to necessarily target race. The only thing that I kind of wonder now that it's gone is instead of a black person being in school thinking like, man, am I here because I'm an affirmative action pick, is it going to be a kid that is poor or a kid that's from a different zip code?
I think we should do away with all of it. Just like submit an application, no demographics. Why do they ask your sexuality? Like, why do they ask all that stuff?
Well, because, for example, if at one point in time it was the case that people were excluded from going to university on the basis of race, that's going to have knockdown effects later on. Your children are going to be the children of parents who did not go to university. In all likelihood, as a consequence of that, their children are going to be the children of parents who didn't go to university. You know what one of the biggest determinants of whether you go to university is? It's whether your parents did. Whether you succeed, whether your parents succeeded.
So, if affirmative action accomplished its purpose, why do we still see the disparities that we do in the professional workplace? If you average white...
Uh-oh, Destiny's wearing his own merch. That shirt looks like garbage. He is the worst looking person there. It's awful.
Wealth, and compare it to black wealth totals, white people as a whole have about 50 times greater wealth than black people as a whole. Per capita. So I just don't understand why you think affirmative action has accomplished its purpose. I don't see
Curious.
that.
Why do you assume that just because there is a disparity means it's because of a racial issue?
What else would it be from?
I mean,
that's the wrong answer. You need to actually give... This guy's an idiot. You need to give like a concrete justification for that. What makes you think this? Well, for example, and if you don't have that to hand, like what I just said would have worked. That would have worked just fine. Like we know, for example, from from studies that a major determinant of whether or not somebody goes to university is whether or not their parents go to university. Well, not that long ago, if you were black, it was a big fucking deal if you were even allowed to go to university. There's not a whole lot of time in between when that was last the case and today. So that would be an easy one to draw upon. Don't just say what else. It's like in it's like in that movie A Civil Action. There's that part where he's like, unless you know exactly what the answer is going to be, never ask a defendant why. Why? Because you're giving the defendant, or you're giving the witness, carte blanche to monologue and to completely reframe the entire conversation. So if he says what else it is, what else could it be? She can now list things, and now the onus is on him to say, but no, it's not this because this, and it's not this because this, and it's not this because this, and you can't do it, you don't have time. Had he actually had an example to bring to bear, he would have control of the interaction, and he would be able to justify his position. Because he came unprepared, he's now lost at sea.
Upbringing, economic abilities,
Desire to
skills.
go, desire to.
I mean,
So
zip
it
code
was their
does
fault
play
then.
a lot. If you grow up in a neighborhood that experiences a lot of trauma, you're not as likely to do as well in school, which means you're.
Why did they grow up in a neighborhood that experiences a lot of trauma?
I mean, lots of people do.
Yes,
live in
but
a-
why specifically do more black people?
Government assistance programs.
Government assistance programs, like what?
Try redlining.
I mean, you can go into that if you'd like to, but let's take
It
a
is
look
relevant.
at the Great Societies Act, which was created to kick black fathers
Who is
out of
this Alec guy? He's annoying the hell out of me.
the home and get black.
Not him. That's I think that's Xavier. I think I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's like Xavier with 2 A's. I think. The guy who was just on screen with the Hawaiian shirt.
There's on welfare assistance. These things aren't beneficial for economics. These things aren't beneficial for actually paving a way for success for black children and black families.
I like how the first male feminist Sunday mentioned was Anna Gasparian. Pretty sure she's a birthing feminist. True.
I mean, reducing a two-family household to a one-family household isn't going to make them the richest man in the world. It isn't even going to get them out of high school. Nonetheless,
You mean
the ability
parent.
to even get to college.
You mean
Yeah,
two-parent?
the child, yes, but a two-parent household
Yeah.
in comparison to a one-parent household, that child is not going to be nearly as successful. That child is more disposed to being sent into prison by doing crimes or not doing very well in school. So how are they even supposed to get that, that wealth disparity shrunk if they aren't even able to get out of the community that is causing these problems for them?
Something I think that
No, Xavier has the best hair, I think, and I think who else? I don't know why Steven's not blue anymore. This guy over here, I'm kind of digging it a little bit. Kind of. The redhead's last point was really dumb, so I'm not digging it too much.
that this
But
conversation
yeah, Xavier does have a nice fade.
illustrates is that like affirmative action is literally the very end of the line of a lot of different parts of a person's life, and by that point trying to rectify all of the inequities that have existed, to try to remedy any of that at the very end with affirmative action, it might just be too broad a brush, and maybe we'd be better served focusing on the earlier issues than trying to throw
This man is so burnt. Look at the back of his neck.
a kid who
He needed to
maybe,
not be at the beach
can
before
barely read
this.
at a 6th grade level into a college to hope that that's the thing that fixes the problem at the end of the line.
I think affirmative action wasn't really supposed to like send kids to Harvard that weren't prepared to go to Harvard. I think that's quite a myth, in fact. I think those that have the qualities to get to Harvard were, before affirmative action, were just completely overlooked.
But it's not. But you have to be careful here because it's not just qualities to go to Harvard. It's qualities to go to Harvard that aren't going to be represented, for example, on your grade sheet, on your report cards. Why? Because something happens when you're in a situation of poverty, or you're in a situation of extreme social prejudice, or for whatever reason, people in your environment are not giving you the opportunities that they're giving to other people. And one of them is that you're under a higher degree of stress, you have less nutrition, you have less time. You have less knowledge because of all of the other things, and because of generational issues. Your parents are likely going to have suffered all the same things as well. They will have less guidance to give you in terms of how to get into university, how to succeed, like how to plan your life leading up to that point so you can get in and things like that. One of the things affirmative action does, in theory, is it allows them to lift people up who have the qualities internally, like they have the Constitution under ideal circumstances to succeed in that environment, but for whatever reason, and there's a long laundry list of what those might be, they were in a situation where those were not able to become manifest on their report cards. So on paper, you might say like, well, I guess the students who merited the position got it instead. But what's hidden underneath that is the students who did better in terms of grades may not have done better in terms of grades simply because they were better students. They may have been better students because they had more time, they had more energy, they had more nutrition, less stress, they had more opportunities, they had better guidance, and so on and so forth. So that's...
Clarence Thomas is like the perfect example. Regardless of what you think about him, he was able to get to Harvard because of affirmative action, because it focused on finding people that were, again, like just overlooked for those.
But things ended up changing. It morphed into something else. So what started out as a good program of giving all black people or people with a lesser chance or lesser opportunity, it started out as that, and then it morphed and I'm not sure who morphed it, but it morphed into, okay, so now we have to have one black, one Hispanic, one this, one that.
That's not how that works.
But hey, talk to the corporations, talk to the people who hire, talk to the board members who say we need to have a woman on the board, we need to have a black on the board, we need to have a Latina, a Latinx, whatever on the board. So it morphed from helping us into now
Tokenization.
Yes. So you have to have one of this, one of that.
Diversity hire.
Well, when you start with a country where people only hire you if you're white, that's necessary. And I know that you said that it started good and then ended whatever. And I don't think that affirmative action was perfect by any measure, but we still see really, really bad inequality. So if you're going to get rid of affirmative action, what's the replacement?
Meritocracy.
Is people need to
There's no meritocracy in
Yes,
this
it
country. You look at Elon Musk, he's
She's an idiot. She's brain dead.
destroying Twitter. There's no meritocracy. That's ridiculous.
Well, first thing I want to bounce back to is it's not a myth that there are like minorities that are being put into colleges that they're not ready for. If you look at a lot of these top universities, including Harvard, Yale, etc., you're going to see a lot of minorities on academic probation because they are being placed in universities that they are not ready for. They are not cut out for that just yet. And it even just makes sense if you look at how much they have to achieve in order to get there. Asian students on average have to score 450 points higher than a black student in order to get in the same university. So if you think of the universities that have courses, et cetera, that grade on a curve, you can only have so many people with an A, so many people with a B, et cetera. So that means that the bottom percentile is going to fail. Who is most likely, just based on logic, going to be the ones failing?
Also, weren't racial quotas made illegal in the 70s? Like this is an old thing. This was hang on, let me Google it. Racial, because I thought the Supreme Court banned them. Banned year 1978. U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Regents of the University of California versus, I don't know how to pronounce this, B-A-K-K-E, Bach, that public universities and other government institutions could not set specific numerical requirements based on race for admissions or employment. The court said that goals and timetables for diversity could be set instead. Yeah, so you can't actually have quotas in university for different ethnic groups.
It's going to be the people who didn't have the credentials to get there in the first place. And then I have to bounce back to
I want to get you on that point, because I would posit that the people who are least likely to have good outcomes in an academic setting are those who have to work 2 jobs, are those who have to drive there from home because they can't afford a dorm, are those who have to go into crippling financial debt. These are and have other stresses in their life. They can't afford a doctor, they can't afford a dentist, they can't afford anything.
I had to do
so
that too, though.
Those are the
That's
people.
not just black people. It's not just.
But it's
If we're looking at
overwhelmingly
straight numbers, there are more white people in poverty than black people.
if you look at the raw numbers, but if you
I don't
actually
know.
It doesn't matter. The point is not that white people can't also be in poverty. The point is that if you have specific populations that have an intensity of poverty, and not just an intensity of poverty, but an intensity of poverty that can be tracked to specific injustices against them categorically as a group, then affirmative action towards that group makes sense. And that doesn't mean you leave poor people from other groups out to dry. But that's not an argument against affirmative action. That's an argument for additional action.
What are the
understand what
wrong
you're talking
numbers?
about.
No
The
number
issue
is
is poverty
wrong.
in general, though. I don't think it's like who's in poverty. It's like poverty sucks.
Maybe
It
we
shouldn't
should
Should
matter.
we have affirmative action for poor people? Probably.
College
in it.
free, and maybe we want to have
If you have a
affirmative action
program-
wouldn't be that necessary.
it'll get even more ghetto.
If you have a program that says if you are under a certain income level, this is how we'll help you.
Did Alec fucking prepare for this at all? Holy shit. It doesn't look like he did. it looks like he's winging it, and he's doing an awful job. But he's apparently the one who's prepared the most because he's the only one talking.
That will overwhelmingly help black people at a far greater percentage than it will help white people.
Trump supports Black lives.
17% said yes. If that older woman sits down, we know exactly who it is. Nope. All right. Really? Okay. Hang on. So this is the yes side, or this is the no side. This is the yes side. Okay, Xavier. Oh no. Oh no.
I think that President Trump supports all lives. I think that he looks at all American citizens as equal. I don't see him doing anything that would make you feel like he does not support Black lives. That's of course going to.
Sorry, the other A's after those would that be like Javier? Is that how you pronounce his name? Not Xavier, it'd be Javier? I don't know.
Lead into the conversation of Black Lives Matter, which was a movement and an organization with so much corruption. Donald Trump not supporting that organization.
This is a stupid question. You're right. It's because it's like it's making. Black Lives Matter is a slogan. Does Donald Trump support Black Lives? What does that mean? Like the opposite of that would be Donald Trump supports black deaths. You could probably make that argument, by the way, but leaving that aside, like, it sounds absurd. This is so dumb.
Doesn't mean that he doesn't support Black lives. It just means that he doesn't support the fraudulent organization that's stealing so much money from so many people to do absolutely nothing with it. Nor does he support a destructive movement that is destroying cities, communities, lives, etc.
With an X, it's Xavier. Well, couldn't you have an X that's an H? I'm sure there are some. Like an H
I don't
sound?
see why someone would think
were.
that President Trump doesn't support Black lives.
I've heard him say he knows all the best black people. He has all the best black friends. I do support black people all the time.
Okay, I know what you're going for. You're trying to do the Trump voice. You don't sound like Trump. You sound like
Oh, sorry, that was a very bad impression. But
that was a very bad impression.
He knows all the best black people. He has all the best black friends. I do support black people all the.
He sounds.
The time. Sorry, that was a very bad impression, but I don't think Donald Trump
It's like almost an Indian accent.
wants bad things to happen to black people. So in that respect, I think he does support Black lives, but the other side of that is he's not really doing anything. He didn't do anything as president, certainly, to uplift black people.
The economy affects black people.
Yeah, I certainly disagree with that point. One of the biggest things I
What does he do for the
supported
economy?
personally. Well, yeah, we'll get into that one later. One of the biggest things he did is he secured permanent funding for HBCUs, one of the largest increases we ever saw for HBCUs, personally done by his administration, among many other things. The First Step Act, which, there's a lot of debate about whether
HBCU, I think, refers to historically black colleges and universities. Oh, looks like it does. Okay. Sweet. How did I guess that? It's almost like I Googled it first and pretended like I knew it.
it was really the best thing to do, but that was definitely a kiss of love to the black race. Freeing Alice Johnson for menial drug crimes she committed in the past that had her locked up. She did not get to see her family for years.
Yeah, but that's not like, okay, I did say I agree, but I agree in the sense that Donald Trump doesn't literally want bad things to happen to black people, like I think a lot of conservatives do. So I think that he just says the most yeah, I do think that. I think he says the things that will get him elected. So I don't think that he has any personal grudges against most people.
Who cares? Who cares what his personal grudges are? If he pursues whatever because it's in his own personal political or economic interest and it hurts a group of people, who cares if his heart's in it? You are what you do at the end of the day when it comes to politics. We're not worried about his immortal soul.
He just says the most popular thing. So I think like Ron DeSantis would be, Ron DeSantis would be somebody that I think actually wants black people to be hurt. So by that standard, Donald Trump supports black lives by leaps and bounds.
You think Donald Trump says the most popular thing?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Then why do so many people hate him?
He got elected as president.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He didn't win the popular vote. Neither time.
That's a liberal
what your
talking
side
point.
loves to say.
That's a liberal talking
I'm
point.
helping you here.
He didn't win the popular vote as a... Yeah. I suppose. I actually don't know if I'd call that a liberal talking point. I think that's it's definitely an anti-Trump talking point. It's a It's a weaponization by counter or anti-Trump voters of the institutions and the institutional redundancy of the college. I don't know. Make it stop? No, unfortunately. Brooks isn't here until 7:30, so we've got another 35 minutes of this. Fortunately, there's not 35 minutes left of this video.
Here, I'm trying to see the
Well,
logic
thank you
in
for
this.
the $5
Obviously, he
already. I
says
appreciate
things to be
Have a
elected
heart.
as a politician very similarly to how Joe Biden did, except Joe Biden actually has a history of racism.
If he said things that people didn't like, he wouldn't have been our president.
What is this discussion? Heavily edited to the point of being incoherent.
So you like everything that Donald Trump says? You think everything he says is popular?
I love a lot of the things he says. I think he's hilarious. When he said big water, that was one of my favorite quotes. Big water.
Water, big water, ocean water.
He has the funniest one-liners, so I love a lot of the things he says. As far as policy, he sucks, but
I'm just shocked you're wearing a Hunter Biden hat. He likes a different kind of
He has
one line.
nothing specific to say. And to be fair, I probably wouldn't have much specific to say if I was thrown into this with no preparation, but presumably he knew about this.
oh, I know, conservatives love talking about his
No, Coke. It's different. Coke, not.
Coke? What about Coke?
Trump is less of the issue and more so the people that support him, like Die Hard. They facilitate that kind of like hate, I think, for a lot of people, not just black people, but like.
I mean, this man.
Who the hell are these people? I don't know. I don't recognize any of their faces. They're just randos. And Destiny for some reason. Like, who selected this team? Like, do these people have followings? Are these like known entities? I don't get this.
Took out like a full page in a newspaper calling for the public execution of 5 black kids. His hotels, all of his businesses have rampant history of denying black people apartments or whatever. So
I forgot about that. I should not have stepped forward.
Look, I mean, Donald Trump cares about Donald Trump.
I hate Alec. I hate Alec so much. At the very least, Destiny has had the decency to say nothing so far.
So I don't think he really cares about anyone, I guess, unless you're like super rich or whatever.
When you look at his history on racial...
Why is Destiny here? Because the panel needs someone with a high school's level of intelligence? I don't know.
Issues, whether it's the shithole countries comment, the plethora
This
of
is
comments he made about
embarrassing.
Mexican people, just the comments he made about Muslims. The idea
So far, the only people who are worth listening to are Chandler and Destiny, which is a hell of a statement.
that Trump cares
God, why does he look like this?
at all about some.
Is he wearing makeup or something? Like, look, his face looks so weird here. Like, what? It's like he's got no detail.
Particular racial minority, I think is a little bit silly. I think Trump will say whatever he needs to say to rile up his base and to get elected.
I don't necessarily think those statements come from a place of hatred. I don't think he was ever saying specifically, oh, if you pray 5 times a day towards the east or towards Mega based on wherever you are, you're a bad person. I think he was saying if you like to fly planes into towers or behead people or throw people off of buildings, maybe you're not the most virtuous person out there.
I supported Trump because he made the economy
You
good.
think it's the video? No, because everybody else looks normal.
And so the economy then impacted black people, white people,
Steven looks like he's AI generated.
Latino people. It impacted everybody. But Trump, he didn't think specifically, I don't think, about black people. He thought about himself, and he thought about how can I make America great for me, and making and I thought.
Why are you here, Renee? She has nothing to say. It's like you're, like, are you running for office somewhere? Like, what is this?
You know what? I'm gonna go with this guy, and the reason I'm gonna go with this guy is because if he can make America great and he can make that it rise for everybody, I'm gonna benefit from that. So that's why I went, and that's why I voted for him. That's why I supported him.
How does that specifically benefit black people? Again, he's a businessman, but he's
Like this fellow's definitely not wearing makeup. He looks like he's been in a toaster oven. Everybody else just looks normal. They have details. They've got lines on their face. They look 3-dimensional. They have an existence along a z-axis.
he's also a racist businessman, like well documented. So
Destiny looks
so,
like Super Mario 64.
And Biden's not. Biden's not.
Yes, he is. He created the crime bill. So that's regardless of the
Well,
point.
address the Central Park 5. That's what you brought up, right? How do you feel about that?
Well,
he took that full
actually,
page out
okay,
after they were
so
exonerated.
I haven't.
He wanted them
dealt-
to be killed,
Well,
executed, just because they were black.
Also, the audios are really weird. Like he's projecting fantastically. Destiny's like in the corner.
story.
And
but-
There must just be one mic that's
he
kind of circling
bars
over the top.
people from attending his businesses or like renting apartments from
No,
all
that makes
his
sense.
like
He's the
stupid
wheels.
Trump towers. I just like
I think Trump at that point was, like many people in this room, particularly liberals, a victim of the media. I think he was scared. I think he was ashamed of the things that he heard in the news and wanted to take action himself as a businessman, not as a
Why
racist.
are you infantilizing him?
I don't like also real quick because people keep bringing up this comparison to the '93 crime bill from Biden. That crime bill, this was at the height of like violent crime and the crack epidemic in the United States. The Congressional Black Caucus supported that crime bill. Everybody in the United States supported that crime bill. The idea that that crime bill was like some racist piece of legislation that Biden was just wheeling out because he hates black people, and that's somehow comparable to the Donald Trump's treatment of the Central Park Five that were already exonerated. That wasn't a victim of the media. The media said they were done. They were exonerated in court. They weren't there.
As I understand it, the prosecutor of the five, he was a black guy.
Here, I haven't, just to refresh my memory. Biden in a 1993 speech warned of predators on our streets who were beyond the pale and said they must be cordoned off from the rest of society because the justice system did not know how to rehabilitate them. Right. Biden's word choice could also pose a problem with a new generation of Democrats who view the rhetoric at the time as perpetuating harmful myths about the black community. In the speech, Biden described, quote, a cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing because they literally have not been socialized, they literally have not had opportunity. We should focus on them now because if we don't, they will, or a portion of them will become the predators 15 years from now. Yeah, it doesn't look like it specifies. There's an uncomfortable similarity to a lot of anti-black talking points, but it's.
And so, in being a black guy, he went and he looked at all the evidence and said, these guys are guilty.
Black people can also be racist against other black people.
Or just make mistakes.
So if anybody does anything you disagree with in regards to the Central Park Five, even if they themselves are a black.
Naomi Chance, thanks for the $2. Destiny got rendered in a Tiger Electronics watch. I remember those being a little bit sharper.
Person, they're just a self-loathing black person. They're just a racist black person.
If they disagree
that
with me, they're
prosecutor was
racist.
doing his job.
That's my policy. If they disagree with me, they're racist.
I like that.
I think
policy.
Trump,
I like
think
that's a
Trump
hilarious
has
policy.
shown a history of ignorant at best and racist at worst behavior. I didn't vote for him or Hillary because I just don't see him as a conservative hero. I don't even think he's a conservative.
Fake
personally.
conservative. I voted Trump in 2016, just so you all know. So I'm just saying.
So I need to I need you to
I want a copy of Three Kingdoms and a bet from Jalma in 2016 when Trump won.
elaborate on if people disagree with you, they're racist, just in general.
I was just kidding.
He's just, yeah.
You never know.
Just like
One
the
of those
hat.
kind of
It's,
moments.
sorry if I triggered you. I'm sorry.
You made
No,
a
I'm not
point.
sure. I just
You made a
need to know.
point
Okay.
a couple of minutes back where you said he just kind of says these things to rile up his base. Why does he need to do that at the expense of black people then?
He doesn't do that at the. I am a member of his base, and I'm sitting there like,
Well, there is an answer to that.
oh man, this is amazing. And I don't know. You can call me
So
self-loathing. You
calling,
can call me self-hating.
so you're
you can call
saying
me
calling
racist.
for the
I can call you
public
This guy trying to riff, that's exactly what he's trying to do.
execution of 5 black men that were exonerated to
When
rile
has he
up
done
his
that
base.
during the campaign trail? He didn't do that when he was a politician.
Well,
he did that when
again,
he was a
it's
scared businessman
everything.
in New York.
It's
feeling
everything
bad.
Steve said about the comments about Muslims, the comments about Mexican immigrants. Why does he
never
need-
about Mexican immigrants, never about Muslims, about terrorists and about criminals and rapists. These are very important delineations to make. And if you believe
I
that
think
when
you
you offend the media
understand,
about,
or
oh, it's
I
all
think
Mexican immigrants, I think it's more of you being, oh man, these poor Mexicans, they need to be supported. It's more of that savior complex. Wow,
What was
we're
the
back
rationale
again.
behind axing or trying to axe DACA? These people were registered with the federal government, they were in school, they were doing everything that they needed to do. They had no home elsewhere. They were brought into this country as minors. Like, what's the explanation for
I
that?
think
Like,
that requires more nuance. Like I mentioned before, I
already
think there were
paid
some
for their
people.
education.
I think
Why
there were
would you
some
wanna kick
people
them out?
feeding him bad policy advice, thinking, "Oh, this will be really good for your base," and he's doing a lot
You're
as a
just
president.
infantilizing
that's okay.
him.
That's okay if we feel that way. But
So,
at the end of the-
if I take responsibility for something, if I say he has responsibility for something, well then you're right. But if I'm saying, well, maybe there are some people around him advising him falsely,
Dude,
it's infantilizing.
He
him.
was the president.
There's no good way. to
He
do this
called
for
the
him.
shots.
But if someone was
What are you
responsible-
talking about?
the only path forward to solving illegal immigration, the rioting needs to fucking stop. And if that means like white redneck fucking militia dudes out there mowing down dipshit protesters that think that they could torch buildings at 10 p.m., then at this point they have my fucking blessing, because starts with amnesty for everybody here. The reality is there's some 10 to 15 million illegal immigrants here. We're not deporting them all.
With the people who are already here, that's a lot more of a messy, nuanced conversation. But as far as people coming in, I do think we need stronger borders and actual like vetting happening.
And I just want to say, in Ronald Reagan's day, he was given the promise. He said, look, if you go ahead and you pass this particular bill,
You know what? I'm going to do an edit of this. I just got an awful idea.
we'll give these people amnesty and we're done. And it didn't happen. We didn't. Illegal immigration continued even after Reagan already said we would give these people amnesty. So that's why we get a burr up our butt, because he had already done it.
Hopefully the devil's giving him amnesty.
True.
That's terrible.
No, that's base. Thank you.
Tasteless.
Wow.
Ninth circle, baby.
My political beliefs have changed from the past.
Oh, who cares?
I grew up in a conservative household, actually, in Ohio. And my parents were always
I invented the wheel.
pretty political, so I always stayed political.
I was a flower arranger.
I was very religious as a teenager. Sometime during college and then afterwards, especially during COVID, my sister actually indoctrinated me into a more leftist position. And I overcorrected a little bit. I started becoming pretty cringy as far as like, sit down and let the minorities all talk, right?
I got some bad news for you, buddy.
Don't say anything, don't speak over them, etc. They would, it was like the whole you can't speak over Candace Owens even if she's literally a Nazi kind of thing. So I stand by that. So yeah, I kind of leveled out, thankfully, and I'm less cringe now. And
Did you?
No, you're not.
I cringed.
You're not
This
my
is
dude.
now.
I'm sorry.
Imagine if we would have been here a year ago.
you can, I mean, maybe I am being cringe. Who cares?
Oh God, that face. Ugh. The lighting is just not flat. Look at this.
You can, I mean, maybe.
Oh God, that is gruesome. Oh dear. Oh, that's what our child will look like. Okay. Oof. Oof.
Yeah, I am being cringe. Who cares?
So I grew up conservative, but I did have more left-leaning ideas about like Black Lives Matter and critical race theory, and I was watching a lot of YouTube, and I did agree that Black people were oppressed and all of these different things, and that we were kind of got the short end of the stick. And during 2020, when there was everything crazy was happening, and I started organizing rallies against the mandates because I thought that they were just totally unconstitutional. And
I should get Alec on. Who the heck is Alec? Who is he? Alec? Is he called Alec Gunter? What? Was that his name? Just another... Oh, it is Alec Gunter.
Are we back?
No, I don't care about you. Only 1.5k followers on Twitch? So he's a nobody. Hang on, let's see him on YouTube. 1.9k follow. Oh, we could actually get him on. He probably wouldn't want to come on now. So they just pulled these people out of a hat, huh? Like, they're just randos. Also, why is he called a leftist variety content creator? Here he's a white liberal. Is that like here, look at this. Just another leftist variety content creator. He's got like no audience. This is his biggest video, reacting to his Jubilee Middle Ground appearance. It's 4 hours long. He's just watching himself. Ugh.
Not American. And then George Floyd dies. And initially I was like enraged like everybody else. And then it started to become this weird like political like agenda masquerading or behind
I
his.
think you'll get along. He's just being cringe here. I don't get along with a lot of people like that. I don't think we would. I think it would take a whole lot of mutual antagonisms to
His face. Like it just, the face of what was actually happening started to peel off. And I was like, oh, I mean, I would counter protest BLM activists at my town square when I lived in Texas. And they were some of the most just bitter, vile, horrible people you could ever meet. Meanwhile, like the Confederate group that would protest there against them also, they were like the nicest people ever to me, ironically.
I grew up in a democratic.
I think it's just the left-leaning people don't really care about the communism anarchism bit. I'm not even talking about communism and anarchism. Liberal is just literally not left-wing. It's not. Like, when you're talking about liberals, you could be talking, for example, about pizza not made yet, delay a bit. How are you taking so long on pizza, Brooks? You just put it in the oven for 15 minutes.
Not a democratic household,
Look,
but
you roll dough, you flatten it, you put sauce on, you put it in the oven on high, you leave it for like 10-15 minutes tops, otherwise it's burnt. Ugh, thank you for the $2 though.
but apolitical.
Sorry,
but
for the $1.99. Late and not even a full $2. Unbelievable.
everybody was Democrat. And then I got a job. And when I got a job and I saw all the taxes come out and I started looking to the left and to the right and going, oh, my money's whittling away over here. And I said, you know what? After Reagan, I'm just going to go ahead and declare myself a Republican. And I've been a Republican ever since.
My mom
Oh, God.
is pretty liberal. She married my stepdad when I was like 15, 16 in high school, and he's super conservative, like loved Trump, diehard Trump fan. And they had a lot of like back and forth, hearing the two sides, like people who are on such polar opposites just like argue all the time about stuff, seeing that there's a lot of
Vosh was invited on Jubilee, but I think it was during COVID issues or something. Vosh would actually do well on here because he can actually project and he actually has positions. He would actually be able to flesh out some positions here. In fact, see, what would have been interesting? What actually would have been interesting is a white liberals versus black liberals panel. That would have been intriguing. The black conservatives thing is like...
similarities in both sides, like the far radical left and the far radical right. They have a lot of similarities. They just don't want to come and like see it.
I started off actually kind of similar to you. I went to a Jesuit high school. I grew up very conservative. My mom is Cuban.
Really? We couldn't tell.
So ride or die Bush supporter, who is now a ride or die Trump supporter. I think the point in my life when I was the most like libertarian was probably the lowest point in my life financially. And I think it's because something that conservatives do really well is they make you feel like you can always like succeed as long as you work hard enough. And that's something that progressives and liberals suck at. That you're a victim of systemic racism, you're black so you're going to be discriminated against, you're a woman so nobody's going to care about your feelings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Vosh is too lazy to do this? He did a good job on Tim Pool. He did a fantastic job on Tim Pool. He was really strong in that one.
As Republicans will tell you, listen, if you...
That's how children make it. I make it from scratch and cook it in a big green egg at 800 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that's still an oven, Brooks. And that's actually how the Italians make it, just to be clear.
You work hard, you can do whatever you want, like just as long as you're willing to put in the work. And I felt that way up to the moment where I was losing my house, where I had an ex-girlfriend that was pregnant, where I had been fired from my previous job. There was a whole bunch of horrible stuff going
My pizza is fantastic, by the way.
on in my life. And I very, very luckily got into online content creation.
That's one thing, Brooks, you do not do better than me. I do better pizza than you.
And from there,
Guarantee
as I
you. I
started
haven't
to make
tried
more
your
money,
pizza,
I started
but
to
I
pay more
guarantee mine's
taxes.
better.
When I get older and I look at taxes that come out of my paycheck, I care a little bit, but it was just so funny to me that back when I was making $15,000, $20,000 a year, I'm like, I gotta vote for the lower tax bracket, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm barely paying any taxes anyways. And now that I'm older, like if the government wants to take, a few, 10, 20, whatever, how many more $1,000 out.
You just said you worked hard.
I did, but I got very, very, very lucky doing so. Very lucky.
Do you think it's just luck?
It's not just luck, but the difference is that born into a wealthier family, you can make so many more mistakes in life. And when you're born poor, you get like one or two before your life is over. And that's really sad to me.
Yeah, so I used to be a liberal. I voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016, as much as I regret that now. My family was pretty left-wing. Some of the people in my family were like radically left, like would refer to white people as blue-eyed.
Flop says, Vosh was tapped to debate QAnoners, but none of them ended up being vaccinated, so they couldn't go on. That's funny.
I had redheaded devils, things of that nature. And as I got older, I
No,
actually
like
started.
he's not wrong. So it's not just luck, right? Luck is you get the chance, but you also need to do the thing. Like it is like there are a lot of, for example, there are a lot of wealthy streamers who just never grow. So Destiny is extremely wealthy by the standards of people on this platform, in general standards actually. But if his stream was just garbage, he would not have gone to that point. He would have been able to survive failure, and he would have been able to fail over and over and over again at the same thing, and so his chances of success would increase, and that's luck. He probably had some opportunities over the course of his career that he made decisions that worked out, and they elevated him, and that's luck. The fact that those opportunities appeared to him and he was able to grasp them, that's luck. Like there is an element of luck and work there. It's a mix, right? Like it's not all luck. Like that is true, but that doesn't mean you're in a meritocracy or that it's all fair, that it is determined by your effort. You can try the hardest you can. You can be talented and you can be right and you can still fail.
Being really outspoken for BLM. I was supposed to be on a reality show teaching.
How much for a pizza making stream? It's a good question. Let me think about that.
To be a BLM activist. At the time, I did a deep dive on BLM, and I started to realize all of these lies.
It's also not like another thing that's lucky is your history makes you have the right balance of being able to absorb stress. You have the ability to project. You have a particular kind of voice that can be a factor. If for whatever reason, like Destiny had the voice of the nails on a chalkboard voice of like inspiring philosophy or something, sounds like he's swallowed a whistle. He'd probably have a lot of difficulty doing what he does. Granted, inspiring philosophy is also very successful, but he's grifting off of fundamentalists.
So then I took a step back. I'm like, okay, what else am I being lied to about? And I started looking at the Democratic Party and questioning my own loyalty to
not fundamentalists. He's grifting off of the apologetics crowd. Not quite the same thing.
Being on the left.
I personally think both sides tend to be racist in different ways. I don't think the government is on the side of the people in general, and that's just me being, a radical.
When I was young, I used to jump for
No, it's not.
joy and say,
No,
oh
it's
yeah,
not.
Obama, black president, that's so amazing. He's the same color as me. But when I started to do more research, one of the biggest things I was confused about is, well, why is he a Democrat?
There's no chance anyone else will reproduce Destiny's results, and it won't be a function of their wherewithal or effort. The timing can't be reproduced. That's true, and in that respect, Destiny was lucky, but he also did have to work. Like, you don't have to deny that he worked to accept that the fact that his work was successful was the consequence of a great deal of luck. So that statement's just true.
What is a Democrat? I did more research about the Democrat Party, and sure, you guys are going to pop off about the head saying, oh, there's a party switch in the Southern strategy and all these things.
Which is true.
Which you may say is true. I don't believe it is true at all.
You're
I
wrong.
understand, you may think I'm wrong.
You are.
However, one of the biggest questions I had was, why is Obama in the same party as the people that started the KKK, the same people that voted against the Civil Rights Act, the same people that are on the news talking about how black people aren't able to accomplish anything and need to be on welfare and need to be promoted with affirmative action and things of that nature?
I also, in terms of, I guess, of my political journey, I was
That's kind of like saying, like, why are you a leftist? Don't you know what Rousseau did to his children? Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah, the party was full of racists back in the day. It still is, actually. That doesn't bear on whether or not they represent your interests or increased as opposed to a decrease in equity or justice or whatever. It's neither here nor there.
raised conservative, actually. And then high school became, I guess, sort of apolitical. And then throughout college and I guess just throughout my life since then, I think I guess you can call me a progressive, you can call me, socialist, whatever you, but I guess that's, in the area of where I fall. You said that you were a Bernie fan in 2016 and then you transitioned to being, I guess, more conservative.
I think you're lying. I don't believe you. That sounds stupid. I don't think you can make that transition. Not like that. You'd have a really weird trajectory to go from there to there.
I guess, I don't know, to me, Bernie Sanders, from what he said to what you think now, what was the shift?
For me, it was socialism, because back then I was a very broke college kid, and I just had this mentality that everything should be free, and I was feeling a bit
Yeah, you're a fucking liar. He was not a socialist in fucking college.
entitled, like everything should be handed to me because I was black, because I was very much in that mentality. As I learned more about free markets, as I learned more about capitalism, I started to appreciate that much more. I started to appreciate small business much more, limited government, low regulations. I just started to like that much more. But I would say just more when it comes to economics, I don't agree with him.
I think you're underestimating how weird people are. No, I think this is what actually happened. I think this person saw a niche that he could fill. Keep in mind, like, all of these people are not like pulled at random. They didn't approach people on the street to fill this. These are people who want to grow their media profile. He knows what he's doing, okay?
Reparations are necessary.
When we talk about reparations, I think that doing reparations in the way that a lot of people think of it, where we just give it to black people, I'm not an expert on this, but I think it would be more.
Well, why are you even talking about it? And why haven't you prepared? Why haven't you made yourself an expert? You could spend like a week just reading up on all of this stuff. You could probably have a cogent response to more or less all of these positions. Why are you being so lazy? Just do that. Like if you're appearing in front of this audience, this is your chance. This is your chance to make it. You have a massive audience right now. Massive. This video is a day old. 754,000 views. You are being seen in the next 2 days, you are being seen by over 1 million people. Right? Probably already, actually, because a lot of people are going to watch this through Destiny's channel. A lot of people are... Why are you not an expert on this? Why do you not have experts to draw upon? Why was this not like the thing that you did leading up to this? Just,
more income-based, and that in itself, like I said earlier, would disproportionately benefit black people, because if you recognize that they are disproportionately affected by a systemic injustice, then doing it on like a class level would uplift proportionally more black people than white people.
So you just mean...
Or any other race.
Yeah, I think like the
this is just...
mostly like black GIs that were left out of like the
I didn't
New
mean to
Deal
hit my head that hard. Ow.
Instance, that to be able to come back and as a white American, as a white veteran, to get a home loan and then build that generational wealth, you could not get that as a black American. So there needs to be, I think, reparations. I don't care really what form it comes from. I think free healthcare, free college, so that everyone has like an equal opportunity to educate themselves, to build a better life for themselves. So it's sort of like...
yeah, what he described wasn't reparations. What he described was affirmative action.
And I think Germany is also a perfect model to follow, you know, by issuing, first of all, a formal apology, which we haven't even done that, but also just like donating to like different funds, and, you know, just, I think a more equitable society striving for that is reparations in and of itself.
I have no problems with reparations if they had happened initially during the like slavery or the civil rights movement or any of that. But to try and do that now logistically just doesn't really make any sense. And like, where would this money come from? Like, we're in so much debt as a nation. Would I get this money? I'm biracial or triracial. Like, do mixed people get it? And like, do Irish people get reparations when they were indentured servants?
I think for reparations, if you can find specific instances of somebody being like actually deprived of something, whether specific instances of like the 40 acres and a meal promise, or whether you can find specific cases of like...
She's talking like the national debt means that they can't afford whatever reparations looks like in this case. That's not the issue.
Chinese people building railroads, or Irish people, whatever, people being deprived of things, that's okay. But otherwise, yeah, it's a logistical nightmare. There's no possible way that we'd be able to do it well.
Yeah, America's unique because we have bent over backwards for decades now, putting minorities in a position of privilege. I feel like we have done so much to give back to the communities that were obviously wronged. And I agree with both of you. Like, had this happened a long time ago, I would understand it. If we had specific incidences that we could trace where people were just completely screwed over, I would respect it. But right now, I don't deserve.
Especially if, like, the thing about reparations, unless we're talking like Germany-style reparations. Is supposedly they're supposed to repair. So the benefit of it would be if you're helping to lift people out of poverty or whatever that looks like. Whatever that looks like. If you're helping to lift people out of poverty, you're also increasing their productivity. You're also lowering the cost of their existence. People with a basic standard of living don't require as much medicine. They don't tend to engage in unhealthy activities. They don't tend to engage in frivolous activities, and so on and so forth. They tend to have healthier relationships and things like that. They tend to go to school. Like,
deserve a payment for something my great grandparents went through, and I don't think that white people are responsible for paying that to me either.
I know we don't want to use the word virtue signaling, but it's sort of like a bribe for a vote in a way, at least in my opinion. In states like California, where they've been throwing around the idea of, oh, we want to pay out this much money to every black citizen in there, in this state, it's like, oh, are you serious? Because this is kind of like a joke, in my opinion.
I think that if we impose reparations.
Why is it a joke? You can't just say it's a joke. You need to actually like give a reason.
Now, I think it will
presumably
rip
you have
America
one
apart. I think that we're already separated enough as it is, and now you're going to have people walking around going, "You owe me money. You owe me money. I'm not paying you any money." It would just.
The reparations aren't coming from randos on the street, Renee. It would be from the government. The government would allocate resources towards whatever that looked like. It wouldn't be, oh, we owe reparations, so here, black people, here's how much you're allowed to take. Just go shake them down.
Really rip us apart.
Giving somebody money doesn't mean anything if they don't know what to do with the money or how to handle it.
911 is a joke? 911 is not a joke. I dialed that number when I was 5 years old, and they came. My parents were not happy.
The money. So if the primary issue in black culture or with black people is generational trauma, then maybe they need more therapy than they need money, honestly.
How do you afford therapy?
Conservatives are also against.
Well, that's kind of my argument. Like, if there is like that, like generational trauma or whatever, like I think.
How do you afford? What are you paying for the therapy with, lady?
Of like free healthcare, they could see a therapist and not be, fall into debt. And I think the argument of like the logistical nightmares of it, I think if we want to pay for something in this country, we usually find a way to do it, especially when it comes to the military. So, we pay for multi-billion-dollar jets all the time.
It's not the dollars, it's who's supposed to get them.
Not to attack progressives, but that is like the most progressive idea in the world. Is like, I can see the headlines like reparations voted on in Congress to be paid in the form of free therapy for people in the hood. That just sounds like the funniest thing in the world. But
well, I also don't think it's going to come directly from like, white person to black.
Thank you, Stephen. That's very funny. Your stand-up future is golden.
Black person, like, oh, your lineage affected his lineage.
It is though. Like in San Francisco,
that accounts for like an eighth of his contribution to this panel. It's like, I think that would be such a funny progressive thing if they were giving reparations in the form of therapy.
They were going to raise the average family, or the average household in San Francisco was expected to pay $600,000 each with the $5 million per black person proposal that they had. And I used to live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was repulsed by that because you have so many homeless veterans on the streets, and they were going to give black people a home for as little as $1 just for being black. Mind you, slavery wasn't even in California. So why that was going to
History of slavery in California. The history of slavery in California began with the enslavement of indigenous Californians under Spanish colonial rule. The arrival of the Spanish colonists introduced chattel slavery and involuntary servitude to the area. Over 90,000 indigenous peoples were forced to stay at the Spanish missions in California. Let's see here. Enslavement of African Americans. During this time, The 30-state nation was equally divided between 15 free states and 15 slave states, with the addition of vast new agriculturally rich territories, including California. The debate over slavery intensified dramatically. California itself was divided over the issue, as a large number of slave-owning Southerners had traveled to California to seek their fortunes in the 1849 gold rush, and many brought their slaves. Many miners expressed concern that slaveholders accompanied by slaves had an unfair advantage in the mining camps, and that slavery's inherent inequality violated the independent entrepreneurial spirit of the mines. That's a hell of a... The independent entrepreneurial spirit. Sprit? Who's editing this? Sprit? Oh, maybe that's just an older way of saying spirit. Sprit. Okay. Spirit of the mines. However, taking slaves into California, which had no laws or enforcement mechanisms for maintaining the institution, turned out to be quite risky for the slave owners themselves. The territory had no slave patrols nor local police interested in maintaining slavery, so slave escapes were quite common. In October 1849, the first California Constitution Convention was held. One of the most heated debates of the convention was on the status of slavery in the new state. While some Southerners who had come to California were staunchly in favor of giving official sanction to slavery in California, Northern abolitionists and white American miners who did not want competition from the slaveholders in the gold fields were well represented within the ranks of the convention. What was the result? So it wasn't written into slavery. Slavery was not written into the Constitution. The Compromise of 1850 later permitted California to be admitted to the Union as a free state. Gwynn and war hero abolitionist. Okay. Although California entered the Union as a free state, the framers of the state constitution wrote into law the systematic denial of suffrage and other civil rights to non-white citizens. Some authorities went so far as to attempt to deny entry of all African Americans, free and slave, to California. The legislature passed a bill that would ban the immigration of free blacks to California. State Senator David C. Broderick, a fierce opponent of slavery and former firefighter from San Francisco, managed to kill the bill through parliamentary maneuver. Slavery did persist in California even without legal authority. Some slave owners simply refused to notify their slaves of the prohibition and continued to trade slaves within the state. Numerous state trials ruled in favor of emancipation. Yeah, so that's not true.
Be the case, like, I don't understand, but it's extremely unrealistic to think that the average family in San Francisco can afford that.
That's because Newsom wants to get reelected.
Okay, but you don't really care
Precisely.
about homeless veterans, right?
That's just
you
a
don't
laughable
support.
idea.
You don't know
I feel
me.
like all your arguments are ad hominem.
But you're here
Literally
as a
every
conservative.
single one ad
You're here as a
hominem.
conservative. So what policies do you support for homeless veterans?
There's ways to address,
Specifically.
for homeless in general.
That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say that we didn't find a middle ground in there.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's a great ending note.
White liberals have a savior complex.
Well, I gotta say, this is a shock. I never expected all four of you to just come forward and admit it, but you know what? I'm happy with these results.
I just think it's a lot of people, I guess, people, of the left, whatever, can kind of fall into that trap of thinking that, black people as a monolith need to be saved as a whole.
I have no shame about it. I have a savior complex as an older brother, and I will save you whether you like it or not. So.
Oh, God, Alec. Fucking hell. What are you doing?
So, that's just me.
Well, it's definitely not, because a lot of us are really just exhausted of being viewed as our skin color. Because when you have this mindset that you need to save black people and we're just sitting here minding our own business and living our lives the way we want to, I don't know why it is that people feel this immense pressure to be so apologetic and
This is like wish-wash.
just always trying to cater and coddle to black people when we just want to be treated like everybody else. We're equal for a reason.
I think especially recently with a lot of riot stuff that's gone on or protest stuff that's gone on, people on the left tend to infantilize a lot of different types of protesters, and especially even talking to some of the other black content creators I do content with, when you hear a lot of progressives come out and say, well, they don't have a choice but to riot or break into this store, or, well, they're stealing, these electronics or shoes for good reasons, you just don't realize it.
Okay, here's what we need to do, okay? Look, I've got a plan. I've got a plan. This is going to be good. I'm going to do the same thing I did before, but it's going to be timed so much better here. Just bear with me one sec. Where's my history? There we go. Porn. Ah, here we are. So this is what I'm looking for. Plan. Oh, I've got a plan. It's going to be... That's my own stream. What the hell? Here we go. Sweet. Okay, this is going to be worth it. Just trust me, okay? Just trust me. You will thank me for this.
Because when you have this mindset that you need to save black people and we're just sitting here minding our own business and living our lives the way we want to, I don't know why it is that people feel this immense pressure to be so apologetic and just always trying to cater and coddle to black people when we just want to be treated like everybody else. We're equal for a reason.
I think especially recently with a lot of riot stuff that's gone on or protest stuff that's gone on, people on the left tend to infantilize a lot of different types of protesters, and especially even talking to some of the other black content creators I do content with, when you hear a lot of progressives come out and say, well, they don't have a choice but to riot or break into the store, or, well, there's...
Oh, shoot, it hit. Damn it. Okay, whatever. We'll recut it.
The rioting needs to fucking stop. And if that means like white redneck fucking militia dudes out there mowing down...
Hang on. Wait. Okay, we got to go back a little bit. Just a little bit here. Okay. I muted this one first, but I need to not mute it yet.
So that's just me.
Yeah, it's just
pressure to be so apologetic and just always trying to cater and coddle to black people when we just want to be treated like everybody else. We're equal for a reason.
I think especially recently with a lot of riot stuff that's gone on or protest stuff that's gone on, people on the left tend to infantilize a lot of different types of protesters, and especially even talking to some of the other black content creators I do content with, when you hear a lot of progressives come out and say, well, they don't have a choice but to riot or break into the store, or, well, there's...
The rioting needs to fucking stop. And if that means like white redneck fucking militia dudes out there mowing down dipshit protesters that think that they can torch buildings at 10 p.m., then at this point they have my fucking blessing, because holy shit, this fucking shit needs to stop. It needed to stop a long time ago.
I'm sorry. I needed to do that. Oh. All right, enough of this shit.
But to riot or break into the store, or, well, they're stealing, these electronics or shoes for good reasons, you just don't realize it. I think a lot of people kind of look both ways, and it's a little bit weird that there's such a complex on the left to excuse like every single possible negative behavior.
There we go, we got our clip.
As long as they're a skin color that you're kind of in charge of protecting.
I find that very offensive.
Yeah.
I find it
really
extremely... it upsets me to hear that, because we're just like you. We just have a different skin color, and to hear that you have to
maybe she is
have to help me is offensive to me. I can do it on my own.
Well, we have to break down.
I mean, like, I hate this so much because this is the implication. If you are pro affirmative action or et cetera, it must be because you think black people can't swing it in a meritocracy. But that's against the entire premise. But they're not going to challenge this at all, because the other side of this, the representation here is, what do we have? We've got Alec, who's just being a clown. He has no idea what he's doing. Destiny is disingenuous. He doesn't represent a leftist, or he barely represents a liberal stance. I don't know who this guy is or what he's doing.
Sometimes why these riots happen. MLK once said that riots are the voice of the unheard. So if you are to address the problem and stop the riots, you have to address the underlying inequality that has historically been pervasive. Even if you as individual people are doing...
He's only capable of talking cliches. It drives me crazy.
Fine, and you don't want anybody else to get in the way of that. That's cool, and I'm not going to I'm not going to be the one to get in the way. But the disparities are undeniable.
So if you take pride in having like a white savior complex, what is it that you think that you're doing to save black people, and what is it that you think that you're saving black people from?
I am trying to make the world a better place through whatever means I can. And
But you're doing it on the backs of us.
I wouldn't say so.
Yeah, I actually do.
Right.
I feel like you want to be a savior and you're using me to make yourself feel.
Why are you saying yes to this? Wait, Alec. No, you're not supposed to adopt the savior complex. That's condemning. If white liberals have a savior complex, that's a mark against them. That's not Why, yes, I do have a savior complex because I am your savior.
Feel good. That's what
How
I'm
am I
hearing.
hurting you?
You're not letting me have my own voice. You're not letting me speak.
How? You're speaking now?
Did I miss a line there? Hang on. Sorry, this thing is melting my brain. Who said it doesn't matter.
No,
You're cutting her off.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I have to.
Yeah. Well, what's
like you
happening?
have to
I mean,
let
you're
the
speaking right now. You're speaking right now in this particular setting. But what you're saying is, like, you took it back to riots and so forth, and it makes it seem like the only way that we as Black people can have a voice is by riots, and then you need to come along and you need to say, okay, poor little Black child, let me help you, let me help you. That's offensive to me, and I feel like you're making yourself feel good about trying to help us, and it.
I also think that, like, when we talk about damage, I think especially when it comes to a lot of the shoplifting stuff that's going on in certain cities, you get a lot of white people that live in nice suburbs saying things like shoplifting is no big deal, that's fine, and then you'll catch YouTube videos of them later on being in a Walgreens in like a shoddy neighborhood, and they're like, man, why is the deodorant behind a locked case? It's very easy to sit behind a gated community and say, oh, well, you know, it's not a big deal, you know, they steal because they have to. Riots are the language of the unheard. I think people haven't read the full context of that quote. When MLK was saying riots were the language of the unheard, and you need to address the underlying condition, he wasn't condoning the rioting, he was just understanding it.
Obviously, there are a bunch of white people that feel they need to be a savior, but I think there's a difference between helping and saving. Like, I don't think I would need to save Black people, but I would tremendously love to help and make sure everyone has like equal outcome, or not equal outcome, but at least equal opportunity, which in my opinion, I feel we do not have in this country.
This is awkward. Hi, guys. So I didn't step forward just because I don't want
This is all very awkward.
broad brush all white liberals as having a white savior complex. I have experienced white liberals who do have that, and they're very unpleasant people. But I don't think every single white person who's a liberal or who is an activist for BLM or any of those things necessarily has a white savior complex. I think that there's a lot of white people who genuinely think that Black people are oppressed and they want to help, and that's what they're told.
What it seems like to me, when most people have savior complex, regardless of whom they're trying to save, it's like they're taking real pain and real trauma and using that as a way to push this political agenda, but also to alleviate themselves of whatever guilt that they feel unnecessarily. Like, I don't know why a white person today would feel guilty for things that happened decades ago, let alone something that happened centuries ago.
I've never.
Because you're not punishing white people. The problem is that the stuff. Hang on, let me hear this again.
Taking real pain and real trauma to me, when most people have
that there's a lot of white people who genuinely think that Black people are oppressed and they
I think I misheard what he said because I was answering a thing.
want to help, and that's what they're told.
What it seems like to me, when most people have savior complex, regardless of whom they're trying to save, it's like they're taking real pain and real
Okay, so he's talking about people that have savior complex. Gotcha. Whatever.
Trauma and using that as a way to push this political agenda, but also to alleviate themselves of whatever guilt that they feel unnecessarily. Like, I don't know why a white person today would feel guilty for things that happened decades ago, let alone something that happened centuries ago.
I've never seen a white person say, I personally feel guilty for slavery.
Okay, but don't say that, because there absolutely are people who say that kind of thing. So this is meaningless. Wow, look how small his hand looks in this shot. It's kind of weird. But why would you? Like, what? It's a big world out there. You can find people saying literally anything. Never say people don't say this, because people always do say this, regardless of what it is.
Maybe they're out there, but
Thoughts?
I've never heard that.
Nestlig says, like, the equal opportunity versus outcome shit strikes me as rather odd. I support both, not in the sense that everyone must be exactly the same, but that everyone should live a quality life. Thoughts? Well, yeah, basically. Sure, that seems unobjectionable.
Yeah,
What
in
thoughts do you
second
want?
grade, when they taught us about slavery, almost every kid in my classroom would spend their entire time looking at Black kids in that classroom. How was I supposed to not think, wow, these people are feeling guilty for something that they have no involvement in and I have no involvement in?
Every kid in my classroom understood the context.
People hate feeling uncomfortable.
The context isn't the issue, Alec.
And obviously you don't want to feel like the bad guy, and so I feel like it comes from a place of like, oh well, like, let me make sure that I'm different and like I'm showing you that I want to like help you, but it comes across like I think it can land very poorly.
I'll tell you what, stop it. Stop
Okay.
it. Because what happens is when you
Stop it. Stop it.
put yourself as the white savior, what you do is you elevate yourself above the black person because you feel then like you have to save us. So just stop it. Just treat everybody regular and normal, just like I would treat you regular and normal, you treat us regular and normal rather than trying to save us.
I just got one thing I wanted to bring up earlier about taxes, because you were saying that you had your job and you were talking about how like you get the tax every time and you're like seeing your tax go up. I worked in nursing homes in 2020 COVID. The last thing that was on my mind when I watched 60 and 70-year-olds on their deathbeds suffocating to death was taxes. I was worried about health care. I didn't give a shit about taxes in that time. So when I go to work every day, that's what I see. That's what I want to fix.
I see you once again.
I hear it. What does that have to do with? That's. Alec, what are you doing?
Elevating yourself above the rest of us, and particularly at me, a white man elevating himself above a black person.
He called me a bootlicker.
He
called me a bootlicker.
Oh no, I triggered them all. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm chilling, buddy.
Yes,
so what
you
I
are.
hope comes out of this
chilling.
conversation is that we're all Americans, and because we're all Americans, we know that America has a bunch of problems, and I think every person here wants to solve the problems, and I think everybody is bringing what they have to the table with their ideas on how to get us to unify. This kind of stuff, right? But you got something in there. Hopefully, I mean, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you have something in there that's redeeming about you that would bring all of Americans together. So I hope that we end on the note of American.
UNITY.
I would like to say we're all made in the image of God, and so we're all have our inerrant worth just because we're made in His image, and we should treat each other as fellow image bearers, not just by the color of our skin. I mean, as Martin Luther King said.
He also did not like capitalism.
I think something that's really challenging. Challenging. I've definitely been guilty in the past of throwing around the Uncle Tom word. I used to be hardcore progressive. I'm still relatively progressive. But something that I've learned as time has gone on is being a white person isolates you from a lot of the different types of racial struggles that people go through. And those struggles can take a lot of different forms. Not just, was my ancestor a slave, and not just is my culture bad, but sometimes in the way that, people grow and develop, right? Like, am I actually choosing these political beliefs because they mean something to me, or is it because I'm black or my parents are black? If I speak a certain way, am I betraying my race? If I am a political orientation, am I a bootlicker? And I think that it's important when you're coming from a progressive point of view.
Okay, I don't care. Oh my god. Okay, it looks like we're doing Bataille tomorrow. I'm sorry, friends. I am exhausted, and I actually need to take off soon. So we're not going to be able to fit it in tonight. Hang on one sec. So we're going to do Bataille first thing tomorrow, and then we're going to sort of reset, and then we're going to do the normal content. So I'm going to figure out where I'm going to send you, just because we went for like the full 2 hours. I was expecting to watch like half an hour of this. No big deal. Pizza in an 800 degree oven takes 2 minutes. I think Brooks is trying to cook his pizza using the rotation of the Earth, but we'll see. I saw pictures of it. Looks good. But I am exhausted, so we're gonna bump that to tomorrow. Where am I sending you all? Who's going? You know what? Rico Rants is streaming. Go, or actually, who else? Let me see. Arsene and Poppy going? Is Demon Mama going? I like sending you to Demon Mama, no? Somebody else was streaming tonight. Somebody I watched. I'm trying to remember who it was. Give me a sec. Let me figure this out. Who? I see Aiko's live. Is Cass Eris live? Nope, no dice. Alas. Alright, looks like I'm sending you to Rico. Unless Lucy. Yeah. Go say hi to Rico for me. Have a good night, everybody.